The morning sun bathed the sleek cars of Reeve Automotive in molten gold. Their chrome edges caught the light like mirrors, winking back at the day. Inside the glass-walled showroom, salesmen stood ready in their polished suits. Each smile practiced, each gesture precise. Every handshake, every promise was part performance. It looked like any other day at one of the most successful car dealerships in the state. But today, something was different. Among the customers wandering between rows of cars was a man in worn jeans, a faded blue shirt, and old sneakers. Nothing about him said billionaire. He looked like any middle-aged customer trying to make a careful choice. His name was Daniel Reeve, the owner of Reeve Automotive, the man who had built this empire from scratch. Daniel had founded the dealership decades ago with a simple dream: quality cars, fair deals, honest people. But as success grew, so did distance. Now his empire stretched across several states, and reports from his managers painted a glowing picture of profits and satisfaction. Yet Daniel had started hearing whispers: customers feeling cheated, trade-in scams, interest rate tricks. The paperwork said everything was perfect. His instinct said otherwise. So today, Daniel had come undercover, not as a CEO, not as a boss, but as a customer. He strolled slowly between the gleaming vehicles, running his hand along the smooth paint. A young salesman approached, sharp smile in place. "Morning, sir. Looking for something particular?" Daniel smiled casually. "Yeah, just something reliable. Maybe a used sedan. Nothing too flashy." "Of course. We got great options," the salesman said, launching into a smooth pitch. Daniel listened politely, but his attention was elsewhere, watching the staff, the customers, the energy of the place. He caught the nervous glance of one employee, the impatient sigh of another, and then something else. "Please, isn't anything else you can do?" The trembling voice of an elderly woman cut through the hum of the showroom. Daniel turned. Near the trade-in desk stood an elderly couple. The man, tall but slightly stooped, had silver hair and tired eyes. His wife gripped his arm, worry written across her lined face. Outside their car sat a modest, well-kept sedan. Behind the counter stood Rick Larson, the sales manager. Daniel recognized the type instantly. Expensive watch, cold smile, and the swagger of someone who believed he owned the place. "I'm sorry," Rick said with mock sympathy, "but this is the best I can do. The car just isn't worth more." The woman wiped at her tears. "Please, it belonged to our son. He passed away last year. We've kept it as long as we could." Daniel's jaw tightened. Rick rolled his eyes. "Look, I understand it's sentimental, but sentimental value doesn't pay bills. The offer stands at $2,000. $2,000 for a car that easily looked like it was worth twice that." The woman bit her lip. "It's the last piece of him we have left." Her husband placed a trembling hand over hers. Daniel could see it. The quiet heartbreak, the love, the loss. Rick's tone turned impatient. "If you're not ready to sell, fine. But I've got other customers." Daniel's blood boiled. He stepped closer. "Excuse me," he said evenly. "What's going on here?" Rick turned, annoyed. "Sir, this is a private discussion." "Actually," Daniel said, feigning interest, "I'm looking to buy a used car myself, and that sedan caught my eye." "How much were you offering?" Rick frowned. "It's not for sale. It's being traded in." $2,000. Daniel arched a brow. "That's it? For a car in that condition? I'll offer $5,000. The showroom went silent. The couple stared at him in disbelief. "Oh, no, we couldn't," the woman began. Daniel smiled gently. "Let's talk outside." Outside, away from Rick's scowl, the couple explained that their son had been a firefighter, killed in the line of duty. The car had been his pride, and though it broke their hearts, medical bills had left them no choice. Daniel listened quietly. "I'll buy it," he said finally, "but not for resale. I'll restore it in his memory." The woman's eyes filled with tears. "You would do that?" Daniel nodded. "It's not just a car. It's a legacy." As he signed the check for $5,000, Rick burst through the door. "You can't just—" Daniel turned, his tone cutting through the air. "We'll talk later. Rick, a long talk." Rick hesitated, confused by Daniel's quiet authority. The couple thanked Daniel with trembling hands and grateful smiles. "You don't even know us," the man said softly. Daniel smiled. Some things are more important than money. But inside, something was gnawing at him. Is this what my business had become? A place where empathy was weakness and profit was everything? When Rick stormed out again, demanding an explanation, Daniel finally let the truth out. "You just cost this dealership thousands." Rick spat. "You undermine my authority." Daniel's expression shifted, calm but unyielding. "Authority?" he said softly. "I didn't realize your job was to squeeze every last dollar out of grieving parents." Rick sneered. "I don't know who you think you are." "That's funny," Daniel interrupted, his tone steel. "Because I do know who I am." He reached into his pocket, held out a business card. "I'm Daniel Reeve," he said. "The owner." The color drained from Rick's face. Around them, employees froze, pretending to work while listening intently. Daniel stepped closer. "I just watched you lie to customers, exploit their grief, and treat this place like a scam. Is that what you think Reeve Automotive stands for?" Rick stammered. I didn't know exactly," Daniel said coldly. "You didn't know who I was, so you thought you'd get away with it. But if I were just another customer, you'd have done the same thing." The staff looked uneasy. A young salesman, his name tag read Chris, spoke up hesitantly. "It happens a lot, sir. Rick tells us to lowball trade-ins, push bad deals, especially with older people." Rick whipped around. "Shut your mouth." Daniel raised a hand. "No, Chris. Keep talking." Chris swallowed. "He says the goal is to maximize profit, even if that means tricking people who don't know better." Daniel's heart sank. His dealership, his dream, had turned into something ugly. "You're fired, Rick," Daniel said finally. Rick gaped. "You can't." "I just did. Get out." As Rick stormed out, cursing under his breath, Daniel faced his employees. From now on, things change. Fair prices, honest service, no exceptions. Anyone who can't live with that can walk out with him. No one moved. Chris spoke up, voice steady. "Thank you, sir." Daniel nodded. "Let's rebuild this place the right way." That night, as the showroom lights dimmed, Daniel stood by the window, watching Rick drive away. The reflection staring back at him wasn't the undercover customer anymore. It was a leader ready to reclaim his legacy. The next morning, the sun hadn't even risen when Daniel pulled into the parking lot of Reeve Automotive. He sat in his truck for a moment, staring at the building through the windshield. The sign that once filled him with pride now looked tired. The lights flickered slightly. The glossy slogan beneath, "Driven by integrity," felt like a bitter joke. He stepped out, clutching his old leather notebook, the one he'd used back when he started the business. Its pages were filled with his first sketches, customer promises, and handwritten thank you notes from families he'd helped. That notebook was his compass, and it reminded him of who he used to be. When employees arrived, they found him already in the office, sleeves rolled up, no suit, no title, just Daniel, the man who cared about cars, people, and trust. Morning, he greeted each person by name, something most hadn't seen in years. Chris, the young salesman who had spoken up the day before, looked nervous. Daniel smiled. "Relax, son. You did the right thing." By noon, Daniel had called a full staff meeting. The tension was thick. Everyone had heard what happened with Rick. Rumors flew fast. Was the owner here to fire everyone? Shut down the branch? Daniel stood before them, voice steady but firm. "I didn't come here to punish anyone," he began. "I came here to find the truth. Yesterday, I saw what we become, and it broke my heart." A murmur rippled through the room. This dealership was built on honesty. People trusted the name Reeve because it meant something. But somewhere along the line, we lost that. We stopped listening to customers. We started treating people like numbers. He paused, letting the silence settle. "That ends today." He walked a whiteboard, uncapped a marker, and wrote 3 words. Honor, service, legacy. "These are our new standards," he said. "We will offer fair trade-ins. We'll explain every detail of every deal. We'll earn people's trust again, even if it means smaller profits at first. Because trust, once lost, costs more than money ever could. A mechanic raised his hand. And if corporate pushes back? Daniel smiled faintly. Then they'll answer to me. It took days, then weeks, for the change to take root. Daniel worked beside the team, helping customers, checking invoices, even washing cars. The first few customers who walked through the door were skeptical. Word had spread about the scandal with Rick. But soon, people began to notice. Old couples left smiling instead of arguing. Young buyers left with keys and confidence. Reviews online started to shift from angry rants to grateful stories. And then, one Friday afternoon, Daniel got a call that would test everything he'd rebuilt. Mr. Reeve, Chris said nervously, poking his head into the office. You might want to come see this. Outside, in a sleek black suit, stood Martin Langford, CEO of Langford Motors, Reeve Automotive's biggest rival. A man known for crushing competitors with ruthless efficiency. Well, Langford said with a smirk as Daniel approached. Didn't expect to find you here, working the floor. Heard about your little meltdown last month. Firing your manager in front of customers? Bold move. Daniel kept his tone calm. I call it cleaning house. Langford chuckled. Still pretending to be the moral one, huh? You and I both know this business runs on numbers, not emotions. I'm just here to make an offer before your reputation finishes collapsing. Daniel folded his arms. What offer? Sell to me, Langford said. I'll buy your entire chain. You can retire comfortably while I absorb the rest under the Langford name. It's a fair deal for an empire on its last legs. Daniel looked him in the eye. I appreciate the concern, he said slowly, but this empire isn't dying. It's healing. Langford smirked. We'll see. My dealership's got the market cornered now. You won't survive 6 months. Daniel smiled faintly. Funny thing about markets, Martin, they change, especially when customers remember who treated them right. Langford laughed dismissively and walked away. But his arrogance only fueled Daniel's determination. 3 months later, the transformation was undeniable. Local news ran a feature titled, Undercover Owner Exposes Corruption, Rebuilds Dealership with Heart. The article went viral. Customers poured in, some just to meet the man who had stood up for decency in an industry built on greed. A few even brought gifts, homemade pies, thank you letters, old photos of the cars they bought years ago. Among them was the elderly couple Daniel had helped on that first day. They arrived holding hands. Smiling. We wanted you to have this, the woman said softly, handing him a small framed photo. It showed their son, standing proudly in front of his red sedan, wearing his firefighter uniform. Daniel felt his throat tighten. You restore the car? The man nodded. Thanks to you, yes. We donated it to the local fire department in his memory. They use it for training now. Daniel's eyes misted. That's beautiful. The woman smiled. You reminded us that good people still exist. You didn't just save our car, you saved our faith. A week later, Reeve Automotive sales numbers surpassed even Langford Motors for the first time in years. But more important than the numbers was the respect. Daniel's employees walked taller, smiled genuinely, and treated customers like family. Chris, once the timid salesman, had been promoted to assistant manager. You believed in us when we didn't believe in ourselves, he said one night. Daniel chuckled. You earned it, kid. Then came an invitation that caught him off guard. Langford Motors, grand opening gala for new flagship showroom. It was clearly meant to show dominance. But Daniel went anyway. Quiet confidence had replaced his old hesitation. Langford spotted him instantly. Daniel, you came. I was wondering if you'd show your face. Daniel smiled. Wouldn't miss it. Langford gestured to his enormous glass building. See this? Efficiency, speed, automation. No unnecessary human interference. The future of the auto world. Daniel glanced around. The showroom was cold, perfect but lifeless. Every employee looked mechanical, scripted. Customers were numbers here. You're right, Daniel said finally. It is the future, just not one I want to be part of. Langford scoffed. You'll regret not selling. Daniel smiled. Maybe, but at least I'll sleep at night. 6 months later, the tables turned completely. Langford Motors became embroiled in a scandal. Hidden fees, fake warranties, and employee mistreatment. Reporters dug deep, and customers fled in droves. Meanwhile, Reeve Automotive became a model for ethical dealerships across the region. Newspapers dubbed Daniel the billionaire with a conscience. During an interview, a reporter asked, "What made you go undercover that day?" Daniel thought for a moment. "Because sometimes," he said quietly, "you have to lose sight of what you built to remember why you built it." He paused, smiling faintly. Success means nothing if you forget the people it's meant to serve. Epilogue. One evening, long after the last car had been sold and the lights dimmed, Daniel stood in the empty showroom, looking at the framed photo of the firefighter's car now hanging on the wall. Chris walked in, holding 2 mugs of coffee. "Thought you might want one, boss." Daniel smiled. "Thanks, kid. And stop calling me boss." Chris grinned. "Old habits." They stood there in silence, the quiet hum of the city outside. "You ever think about retiring?" Chris asked. Daniel chuckled. "Every morning. But then I walk through those doors and remember, this isn't just a business. It's a promise." Outside, a customer drove away in a newly purchased car. The headlights glowed like hope reborn. Daniel watched until the taillights disappeared, then whispered softly, more to himself than anyone else, "Let's keep driving forward. The right way." And for the first time in years, the man who once hid behind a disguise finally smiled. Not as a billionaire, but as a believer.